Hello. Hello once
Hi.
again. Thank you so much for joining us for today's inaugural event. You are all very much welcome to today's event. Um, of course, we waited for a few minutes to enable more members join. I see that we have about 26 participants, and so I believe we are good to go. Right. Welcome to today's event, which is dubbed Fashion Law in Ghana, Understanding the Legal Landscape of Ghana's Fashion Industry. But of course, very quickly, before we delve into today's discussions, into the intricacies of why we are here, I'd like to give a bit of a background, very shallow, so that during the country representative's address, he will delve deeper into who we are as an institute. So FLIAfrica, which is Fashion Law Institute Africa, is a Pan-African institute headquartered in Lagos, Nigeria, with presence in over 11 African countries, including Ghana. So for today's event, it is being championed by the Ghana chapter, of which I happen to be a deputy country representative. So today's event is geared towards, discussing what we can do, you and I can do to enable us ensure that we have a vibrant fashion industry, looking at what we have infrastructure-wise in terms of the infrastructure available and also the laws available, how best we can merge both to have a comprehensive industry in order to enjoy the ecosystem, not just as fashion, but also the business side of it. So very quickly, what we do as an institute for the Ghana chapter is geared towards bridging the gap between the legal practice and fashion entrepreneurship while enhancing professional development in fashion law to support the long-term growth and formalization of Ghana's fashion sector. So that is what we do as an institute, specifically as the Ghana chapter. So without much ado, I will quickly hand over to the country representative in the person of Dennis Akwabua Esquire. He's going to give us the keynote address and also the address of the country representative. So please, without much ado, let's welcome Dennis Akwabua Esquire. Dennis, the floor is yours. We are not able to hear you. If you could kindly turn on your mic. Hello, please, can we all hear Dennis?
No,
Anyone to
please.
give feedback? Thank you.
No, please.
Dennis, kindly check your mic.
He's not audible. I don't think anyone can hear him.
Right. Let's give him some few minutes to do that. Dennis, are you okay? Hello, Dennis, can you hear me, please? All right. So while we wait for Dennis, I think I can give you a bit of a background on why we are here. So of course, today we are going to have a panel discussion. We have in our presence two very esteemed personalities in the industry, right? In fact, we have one of them being a learned friend herself. So we have Stacy Ohima Tahiru, and Akuvi Ajabs. These are very prominent people in the industry. And today we'll be hearing insights from them on discussions surrounding IP, sustainability, and the business of fashion in Ghana. So with Stacy being a lawyer as well as a fashion entrepreneur, she'll be looking at what it means to be a lawyer and also a fashion entrepreneur. So she'll bring aboard her expertise from both angles. And then we discuss some of the issues facing practically, the practical issues on the ground, and how best we can address them. And then we also have Akuvi, who will be addressing the legal gap in Ghana's sustainable fashion movement. So she's going to examine the policy and regulatory vacuum from Kantamanto to emerging designers. I have to remind us that in the course of the discussion, you are kindly reminded to mute to ensure that you enjoy today's program. If you have any questions, kindly feel free to put them in the comment section. I'll open the chat and I'll read your questions to the speakers. Let me quickly check on Dennis again. Dennis, are you ready now? Can you hear me, please, Dennis? Hi, Dennis.
I think Dennis might be experiencing some network challenges, so we can proceed, and then when he's back, we can take his session.
All right, thank you very much. Right, so as I have been given the green light by our leaders, our leadership, I'll proceed. And so since we have Harriet in our midst, I'll quickly introduce who Harriet is. Harriet is the same person as Akuvi Ajabs. So without further time wasting, I'll just introduce who Harriet is so that she can talk to us about her beautiful presentation she's prepared for us today. So very quickly, Harriet Ann Ejabin is a freelance fashion writer, children's book author, and researcher specializing in sustainable fashion. She's a contributing author, having written a chapter in the book, Fashion Marketing in Emerging Economies. She's also a 2022 Community Solutions Fellow, where she served the Fashion Impact Fund in Manhattan, New York, as Communications and Partnerships Fellow. Harriet pursued an MSc in Sustainability and Consultancy at the University of Leeds on the prestigious Chevening Scholarship. Harriet is passionate about amplifying the voices and leadership of women to mitigate the issues of climate change and move towards a sustainable future, particularly within the Ghanaian fashion industry, to influence global action. So without much ado, I'll invite Miss Harriet, pardon me if I am using the wrong title, to take the floor. She'll be addressing us on the second theme, which I had already intimated, on the legal gap in Ghana's sustainable fashion movement. She will be examining the policy and regulatory vacuum from Kantamanto to emerging designers. As I've already indicated, if you have any questions, kindly wait for her to finish her presentation. While the presentation is ongoing, you are allowed to put in your questions. I'll read them after. However, after her presentation, if you have any questions, I will open the floor to enable us ask our questions. So, without much ado, Harriet, if you're on the call and you can hear me, please, the floor is yours. Please, let's welcome her with a virtual clap, a virtual clap. Thank you so much for making the time with us today.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I've already been introduced. It was a really difficult task trying to put my bio together. I am not very good with putting bios together, but yeah, thank you. Again, my name is Akuvi. I like to call myself a sustainable fashion writer and a researcher because that sort of sums up everything I do within the fashion industry. It's an industry I'm really passionate about. I think a day before yesterday, someone sent me a message and spoke about how proud they are of me because I've been consistent with this journey. The industry needs people like us. So, although there were so many times that we wanted to give up on the industry, we still kept going because the industry needs passionate people. I need to share my screen. Is that possible?
Yes, it is. You have access, so you can do that.
I don't think I have access to share my screen. Okay, let me see. No, I don't have access to share my screen. It doesn't give me access to share my screen. Okay, perfect. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, I am able to see.
Okay, perfect. So today we are going to talk about the legal gap in Ghana's sustainable fashion movement and what fashion law could change. I am gunning to be a lawyer. I'm not a lawyer yet. So I'll try as much as possible to have this conversation from a writer and a researcher's perspective. So lawyers, bear with me. So in this presentation, we are going to go through what the actual issues are, whether or not Ghana has a dedicated fashion law framework, and what the landscape looks like. We will talk about the four pillars that fashion law or the industry is on, which is labor, the environment, intellectual property, and trade. I have identified six specific legal vacuums costing the industry, which we are going to talk about. Some concrete legislative interventions that could shift the practice within the industry, and what industry actors, including you, can do now. So when we talk about sustainability, I mean, people probably might be tired of the term sustainability because we've heard it over and over again. But simply put, they are just activities. I like to think about them as business activities within the fashion industry that puts less pressure on the environment and everybody within the supply chain. That is how I like to think of sustainability within the industry. And it is sad to know that Ghana does not have a dedicated sustainable fashion law framework. I always tell people I have conversations with that we are it's just vibes. The industry is just vibes. Like nobody even talks about us. Although the fashion industry generates a lot of revenue, I find that most of the policies, we are not even at the decision-making table. There is a whole creative industry or a creative arts ministry dedicated to activities within the fashion industry, but I mean, we don't see it. And this is not accidental, it's structural. Also because we don't have a lot of people within or by at the table where a lot of the decision making happens, and it's quite unfortunate. There are, however, some regulations that the industry is backed by. We have the Labor Act of 2003. We have the EPA Act and its regulations. We have the Companies Act. We have the Copyright Act, the Ghana Standards Authority Act, and Public Procurement Act. So the problem within the industry is not the absence of these regulations, but they are not fragmented. They are not tailored to specific industries. So you find that although the Labor Act of 2003 exists, although it provides a framework, but the informal fashion workers within the industry are not protected. Last month, I had a GTP sponsored, I was on a GTP sponsored masterclass where we were talking about labor issues, and you find that there are still apprentices that are being molested by their by their madams. And I mean, the conversation became very insensitive and sensitive and intense to the point that these people don't even think that it is not right to abuse apprentices, right? So Labor Act exists, but what about the informal workers within the fashion industry? What about companies or fashion brands that are not organized to the point where something as basic as a contract, a working contract is not even given to the workers? So yes, these regulations exist. Even with the EPA regulations, they are also not, they are sort of inconsistent and limited. Environmental Protection Agency is supposed to ensure that wastes are being disposed of properly, but when you go to Kantamanto, you see the burden of fast fashion's waste. You see, you go to beaches. So although these regulations exist, who is ensuring that fashion businesses or the women within Kantamanto's value chain are disposing of these fashion waste properly? Business formation also within the fashion industry. Yeah, there are basic ones that you go to the Registrar General's department to register your business, register your company's name. But I mean, for most businesses that I have come across, not a lot of people even register them, even understand that you need to register your business. So who is ensuring that all these things, all these activities are being adhered to? Copyright is my favorite one. Yes, the Copyright Act exists, but when you talk about the copywriting issues within the country, everyone tells you that it's a very dicey conversation. It's because I mean, when somebody takes something, you can see that this piece has been blatantly stolen, but how are we ensuring that designers' work, creatives' work are being protected from preying individuals? When it comes to issues of made in Ghana, at least if you know now in Europe, you cannot slap made in Europe tag on a lot of products without justifying it. But when we say made in Ghana, what does, also because in Europe there are clear explanations, or there are clear processes that, or standards of what's made in Europe is or made in Italy is. But in Ghana, do we even have that? Yes, Ghana Standards Authorities exist, but they are more interested in people who are doing bleaching creams and they are not authorized and all those things. Who makes these laws, or who even pays attention to the fashion industry to sort of give made in Ghana, quote and unquote, a proper explanation? So we are going to quickly move to the 4 pillars of the sustainable fashion the pillars on which sustainability within the industry exists. So it lies on labor, environment, intellectual property, trade, and standards. So labor issues, protection of dignity, the dignity of people within the fashion industry or within the supply chain, whether they are formal or informal workers. Environment has to do with how even pieces are disposed of. You could realize that it's sad to know that there are certain businesses that probably may not finish using a fabric for the year, and the only way they think that they can dispose them of is by burning them. Then again, intellectual property issues, are indigenous prints, are symbols, they have no proper geographical indication. Do we have what are the trademark laws that even protect the works of or our indigenous creations? Do we have laws that protect them? We do not have. The traits and standards, the business activities, we don't have any clear statutory standard, like I mentioned before, for what made in Ghana is. I remember a colleague of mine spoke about the fact that there was a time that she was in procurement at the time, was working for she's a fashion business consultant. She made a post about how they had sent a product. They were shipping a product and the product had to be returned because there was no made in Ghana label on it. So do we even know that if you are shipping pieces outside the country, there must be made in Ghana? And what are the standards? What statutory standards do we have? Nobody cares about the fashion industry. Nobody talks about it. It just gets buried. Yes, the laws exist, but implementation, they exist in silos. Do we have proper ways to implement them? Who is even taking care of or ensuring that these laws are being properly implemented? So there are some gaps that exist. Kantamanto is like a hub. It's a hub for, I always say that although I get tired of it most of the times, that you can't talk about sustainability within the Ghanaian fashion industry without talking about Kantamanto. I always say that it's important for us to advocate for clear quality control processes within the Kantamanto market. Yeah, I don't think that any government wants to take the fall for banning secondhand use or secondhand business or secondhand business within Ghana. But if we are not going to ban it, what are the legal framework? We have to regulate activities with within the Kantamanto market, but nobody's paying attention to the Kantamanto market. The only time that Kantamanto market receives some kind of attention is when there is a disaster. Maybe there is a fire or there is a flood or there is something. That is all. That is when everybody, for like a whole 1 week, everybody talks about Kantamanto. Once the market is being rebuilt back by the traders within the market, nobody talks about them. What about our dressmakers within the tailors, the apprentices? Do our labor law, the Act 651, even covers them? They don't. Made in Ghana, like I mentioned, it lacks a clear statutory definition within the fashion supply chain. So it's something that we need to pay a lot of attention to. Then our indigenous prints, symbols, and culturally significant, but are legally unprotected. Now they said it's Kente and Kente, whichever one it is ours. Adinkra symbols, symbolism and cloth traditions, the fugu, the weaving techniques. How are they protected from other people who prey on them? They are not protected. Issues of extended producer responsibility is very loud in Europe, but I mean in Ghana, it's just a few individuals that are talking about it. At the H&Ms, the fast fashions, the ones that create so much waste that gets dumped in Kantamanto. Who are we holding responsible for all these ways that are being created? Who are we holding responsible? What are the legal or statutory, what's it called, backings or regulations that ensure that people who make the waste take the responsibility for it? Okay, also within the sustainability movement or the whole sustainability industry, disclosures, sustainability activities, especially for corporates, is voluntary. I always tell people that, yes, I get it that you said you are doing this, you are doing embarking on these activities to put less pressure on the environment and uphold the rights of people within your supply chain. But where can you direct us to? Where are your sustainability reports? We can't find them. Especially within the fashion industry, not even a single person within the industry, the Ghanaian fashion industry, has a sustainability report. I mean, a few people will talk about it in their Instagram posts, but I always say that it's important for fashion brands to make a conscious effort of disclosing these activities that they do. But then if there are no regulatory standards, there is nobody trying to implement all these things, ensure that they are implemented, nobody cares about it. We only come sit on panels, talk about the things that we are doing, CSR, how we are recycling and reusing, but it's really not, there is no obligation on these fashion brands and corporations to disclose the activities that, and it's such a worry. So I'm going to talk about what other jurisdictions are doing, especially in Europe, that we can follow suit. Not that we are going to take everything that or copy what they are doing, but there are things that, or these are policies that we could also look at and try as much as possible to implement. So in France, there is the AGEC law, which is an extended producer responsibility for fashion brands, where brands must fund take back and recycling, and sold stock cannot be destroyed. And this is a direct model that Ghana could actually look at implementing. Maybe one thing that Ghana can do, which I always talk about, is the fact that we need to tighten our quality control processes, because when you go to Kantamanto and have a conversation with the retailers in the market, the conversations are different. People tell you that what you invest is what you get. The kind of money you invest or the amount of money you invest in a bill is the kind of bill you get. So if you are investing maybe about $100 or $150, you don't expect to get a grade A bill. So you might have to start investing like $400, $300 to $500 to get quality pieces within the bill. However, there are also not financial institutions that are offering soft loans to these traders to be able to get them to buy bills that they could actually find good pieces in. So if we are tightening our quality control processes and ensuring that every single thing that comes into the market go through some level of what's it called, quality control scrutiny before they are brought into the country, even with that, it needs money. So there should be some financial help for these traders to be able to buy pieces that actually has value, or pieces that have value, or bills that have value in them. So there is also the digital product passports, which is being worked on by the European Union, which will require traceability data for all garments. Due diligence directives mandate supply chain transparency. What can Ghana do? Ghana receives EU-bound exports, and this will affect Ghanaian producers, because we are actually, this digital product passports, it's really important, because it's just like, what are we, like when you say made in Ghana, what is actually made in Ghana? European Union is working on it. What can Ghana do? What are the lessons that Ghana, if implemented or if finalized, what can Ghana do to, or what kind of lessons can be learned from this policy that is being introduced. So in Kenya, plastic and textile waste, they've introduced the plastic and textile waste regulation. The EPR framework are already in motion. Ghana's trajectory is the most directly comparable to Kenya's trajectory is most directly comparable to Ghana's path. I know that in Kenya and Rwanda, the secondhand business has been banned. But when I did my research, it really showed that it actually defeated the purpose for which they placed the ban on secondhand business, to actually improve their textile industry. But it's rather increased unemployment within Kenya and Rwanda, because there were no, typical as African leaders are. They don't think about solutions before, or alternative solutions before taking certain action. So no other alternate employment opportunities were put together or provided for those people whose jobs that were affected due to the ban. But it's why I said that the ban on secondhand business will only increase unemployment. So what can we do? We have to tighten the quality control processes. So the last time I think I read something about the fact that there's styrofoam, the takeaway packs are being banned. There is a law that is going to, I think by the end of 2026, they are supposed to fade them out of the system, which I believe in Ghana, which I believe is actually a good move. So it's one thing that we can start doing. In India, there are cultural textile policies that protect, because I mean, when you think about India, you think about the trimmings, accessories, like you think about fashion in on a high scale is India. So India actually has policies that protect their indigenous cultural textiles. It's same also in Indonesia. These are things that, or these are policies that Ghana can actually tap into. But what do we need to do? We need to have a lot of people at the table, the decision-making table. We need to have a lot of, because the cultural or the creative industry is just not music. It's just not travel. It is also fashion. Because these musicians are being clothed or costumed by the fashion industry. The tourism industry are also being clothed by the fashion industry. I mean, if you go out, you think about Ghanaian designers, you are thinking about Christy Brown, you are thinking about the Pistis, you are thinking about all these designers that bring some sort of glory to the fashion industry. It is an industry that even hires women or creates a lot of employment for women within Ghana. So it is the fashion industry or the creative industry for our our minister. She seems to be very fashionable. So I don't understand why a lot of attention is not given to the fashion industry. There are so many roundtables that are being organized. The last time I think I saw one that was being organized by the Ashanti regional minister, and I didn't even see a strong fashion voice on the panel. Who are you even consulting when you are putting all these stakeholder conversations together, stakeholder engagement together? Who are you consulting to ensure that fashion people are also on the table? Because every decision that they make at that table also affects us. It's not, like I said, the creative industry is not just music and tourism. Fashion also plays an integral part. So it's very important for us to also have a representation at the table where decision making is done. Can you all hear me? Am I making sense?
Yes, Please, we
Okay.
can
Yes.
hear you loud and clear. You're making so much
Yes,
sense.
you're
Thank
making
you.
so much sense.
Right. So what can law do, or what can fashion law do? We need labor protections. I mean, I believe that, again, I'm not a lawyer, but is it possible for us to have some sort of sections within the Labor Act that protect informal workers, especially within the creative industry, because they are the ones whose rights get exploited the most. The EPA enforcement pathway for fashion, we need a dedicated compliance standards for dyeing, finishing, and textile waste. The last time, I think somewhere in 2020, we are in 2026, so somewhere in 2025 or 2024, I can't even remember the year. There was a news on the local FM stations that a river somewhere in Koforidua in the eastern region had turned blood, and the ancestors were they said the ancestors were upset about something, and the river just turned. So I think it called there was a lot of attention that was given to that, and there were I think some investigations were done into it, and they realized that there was this dying business that decided to offload the excess or their waste, the dye waste, into the river, a river that serves as a source of drinking water for the villages around. These are some compliance standards that are supposed to be put in place by the EPA to ensure that what kind of dye are we even using in the first place? One. Then two, how are you even disposing of the excess from your factory? Even your fabrics, how are you disposing them of? Open air burning, like we have to. I mean, I know open air burning is what's it called, a crime in Ghana, but who is ensuring? I mean, when you even go outside, you see now, if you walk outside your house, 10 minutes walk, 10 minutes into your walk, you realize that someone is doing an open air burning. Like, we don't have regards for, or we don't have regard for the laws, because who is ensuring that these laws are being implemented? There should also be legal protections for our indigenous prints and symbols. It's really important. Made in Ghana needs to be, we need to have like a statutory explanation for what made in Ghana is. Extended producer responsibility needs to go in full force. People need to pay for the ways that they create. Sustainability disclosures need to be mandatory, especially within the fashion industry. It shouldn't be business as usual. It shouldn't be a part. I mean, when somebody discloses their sustainability activities, they shouldn't. It shouldn't like it shouldn't be a part on the back. Like it should be a requirement. Everyone has to do it. So I find it very problematic when big corporations are bragging about the fact that, oh, they disclose this, they disclose that. It should be mandatory. Like, you owe us that information. You need to tell us what you are doing to protect the rights of people. So it has to be mandatory. We also need to ensure that big corporations and big institutions prioritize or are able to purchase from the locals. These need to be standards, like they should actually be requirements, so that we can grow the creative industry, and also informal workers, like people who farm the cotton. Some time back, I was looking for elephant grass, thinking that, I mean, when you go to the north, it's supposed to be that's what they are supposed to grow in the north, but apparently, and I mean, I stand to be corrected. Apparently, now they purchase the elephant grass from the Ashanti region. It's really like not a lot of attention is given to the creative industry, where our raw materials are sourced from. Nobody talks about it. Nobody financial aids are not even given to the this industry. It's really a task trying to even raise funds to build your first collection, because no bank wants to take the risk. And I mean, I feel that policies need to go in to ensure that these actions are in place. So The Environmental Protection Agency, issues about environmental sustainability is really important to me because it is something that is an issue. It is a big issue within the in Ghana. We don't know how to even manage our waste. Plastic waste. I don't know how that went. So while the EP exists, or the Environmental Protection Agency Act exists to empower enforcement against, we need this, what's it called? These policies to enforce, or to, yeah, the act needs to empower enforcement against industrial polluters, especially people who do tie-dye businesses, because it's quite unfortunate how they dispose of these toxic substances. So the regulations need to cover wastes and chemical use, dyeing and finishing operations should also be technically covered. I highlight finishing because there are so many, and this I talk about it openly, that some brands within Ghana, whether emerging or existing, when you take their pieces and you see the finishing and you match the finishing against the price of the product, it really does not tally. So what are you selling to me, right? And when I buy these pieces, and probably for some of us, we are not, some people are not vocal. Some of us will call you, I will tell you that this is this and this is what. So for people who decide that, oh, and yes, she as typical and peaceful as Ghanaian, we just decide that, oh, I'm not going to say anything, then it's there. At the end of the day, if someone you don't want it, someone else doesn't want it, yeah, you throw it away, right? So we need proper quality control standards. Aside from that, also countermand tool. I always try to talk more about or emphasize quality control standards, because I mean, if the pieces come into the country and they can't sell them, then at the end of the day, where do they go? So the same way that the Ghana Standards Authority sets product standards for normal products, beauty products, hair products, food products, they also need to send they also need to set standards for the industry, the fashion industry, all products coming from the industry. There should be some, it shouldn't, again, it shouldn't be business as usual. So although that this exists, what we are missing is the, like all these, like I mentioned in my first slide, all these standards or regulations exist, but we need specific ones for the industry. So are they going to review these regulations to put fashion sample and be like very, very specific, like they did for, let me remember my petroleum law notes, like they did for the amended Petroleum Act, where they define what what's it called, Ghanaian companies are, indigenous Ghanaian companies at, and also putting some measures in place that these companies could adhere to. Do we need that? I believe you also need that. We need, the creative industry needs like all these policies. We have to center out the creative industry, because it's labor exploitation within the industry is like just too much for us to just leave it like that. So what am I asking you? For, I'm sure there are still, or on this call we have budding fashion designers amongst us, or people who already have existing businesses. You have to document and publish your own sustainability practices. Like you need to find somebody, your marketing team, to put together your sustainability report. It's really, 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 really important. We have to also be advocates for policies within the fashion industry. Yeah, I get it that some of us might be vocal, but I mean, some of you also have what's it called, contacts in high decision making places. So it's important for you. I mean, you may think that they are not, or they may not be enough, but I think it's important for you to, I mean, talk about this conversation, talk about, have these conversations with them, and tell them why it's important for us to have policies within the industry and ensure that they are being implemented. So we also need to push sector associations to engage the PA and the Ministry of Trade. I mean, again, we need to have a seat at the
I can
table.
send me your meeting, we Zoom call to me, yeah. Right. I can send me Zoom call.
Can I go ahead?
Yes, please.
Can I go ahead? Okay, all right. So we need to push our fashion sector or fashion industry associations to engage the Environmental Protection Agency. They also need that kind of stakeholder engagement is important because they need their perspectives are needed in putting together these policies, because it's one thing putting together the policy and it's another thing actually getting the thoughts of the people who are mostly impacted by these policies. So for we educators and the advocates, we need to try and embed fashion law literacy in design and business curricula. It is why I love what the Fashion Law Africa is doing, not because I am having a presentation with them or I find that we don't have a lot of these things within the industry. Last time I was thinking about, I want to be a fashion attorney, but how many of them even exist in Ghana? Like, how many firms will even take these things on? So I think it's a good job that the Fashion Law Africa is doing. And it's important for fashion designers to have this kind of knowledge, because I find that the fashion students are the grassroots members. These are the kind of information that they need to get so we can prepare them better for the fashion industry. We have to build the evidence-based documents that build evidence-based documents and then and highlight what the gaps cause the business. Sorry, I think there was some missing at this thing there. So again, when you are sitting with your friends in high places, you need to talk about why the policies that you are missing sort of impact the businesses that you are operating. Like what my friend spoke about, they shipped the pieces all the way, like large volumes of clothes were shipped across and they had to be returned because there were no made in Ghana labels on the pieces. So if they knew this or there were policies that already existed that they are aware of, this is like an avoidable mistake. So it's also important for us to engage law faculties and think tanks to develop legislative proposals. Like the Fashion Law Africa could be consulted to help develop policies for the industry. And for you, individual, you have to prepare. So you have to prepare your minds. There has to be a mindset shift when all the advocates and the educated and the industry actors come together and decide and they actually have a seat at the table and develop these policies. There should be a mindset shift. The individual needs to prepare their mind to receive the policies and not fight against it. You also should treat sustainability practice as a competitive advantage and legal preparedness and connect with Queen Sarah's work as well. We are doing a lot of sustainability work and we are open to collaborating with organizations like the Fashion Law Africa to advocate for some policies that will bring some sort of changes within the fashion industry. So the movement we are building, I'm going to end with this. The movement we are building deserve the law that it has not been given yet. I'm hoping and praying that platforms like ours are able to push for these laws to actually be built. This law should be existed and also ensure that implementation is adhered to. So thank you very much for listening to my presentation. I hope I am able to respond properly to your questions.
Thank you very much, Harriet, for such a comprehensive presentation. I have personally learned a lot. I knew a thing or two, or had a thing or two in mind. By hearing you talk today has really, really opened my mind further to knowing more about the fashion industry. In the meantime, if there are any questions, kindly feel free to put them in the chat, and I'll make sure that I read them, or alternatively, you may raise your hand and I call you. Right. As there are no questions at the moment, I'll quickly go back to Dennis Akwabwa, our country representative, to kindly give us the keynote and country representative address. And then from there, if there are any questions, Harriet will do us the honor of answering them. Thank you very much once again, Harriet, for such insightful
I think
presentation.
there's a question in the chat box.
Yeah, I think
Right.
that's a question.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for alerting me on this. Dennis, kindly hold on. I'll invite
Sure.
you.
But can you hear me now?
Yes, you're very audible now. Thank you so
Thank
much.
God.
Right. So, do you think there are not many regulations because for so long African governments have considered sustainability a Western priority? Let me take it again. Do you think there are not many regulations because for so long African governments have considered sustainability a Western priority? So that's the question, Ms. Harriet.
Sorry, I went off a while. Can you all hear me?
Yes,
Okay,
loud and
great.
clear.
Okay. So I think the person was asking, can you read out the question again? I don't think I can see the question anymore.
Yes. So the question is, do you think there are not many regulations because for so long African governments have considered sustainability a Western priority?
Absolutely. I think what it is that because sustainability is embedded in our business model. I mean, African fashion is what sustainability is. I mean, we do small batches. We do in our various homes. We do hand-me-downs. We have artisanal mindsets, small batches, and all those things. So it is what our business model is centered on. So for most people, they do not even realize that what we are practicing on the continent is sustainability. And all of a sudden, like this big word has come, and everybody's talking about it. For some people, they believe that sustainability is a Western concept that is being forced down on us. So it's, yeah, likely, or it is the reason why a lot of attention is not paid, especially to the fashion industry, sustainability within the fashion industry. So what I advise fashion brands to do is to also make a conscious effort to ensure that these activities are allowed. I hope your question is answered.
I believe it is. Thank you very much. So Andrew, kindly unmute. You may go on.
Yeah, thank you very much. This is not a question, it's more of maybe an addition to what has been said. And I'm happy that in answering the question, you mentioned the fact that sustainability has always been with us as Africans, and it's not a new concept that is being handed over to us. And I agree also that this has always been there earlier, where during the times where our grandmothers could hand over their kaba and slate, to be turned into another, product or service to be used by a grandson or a grandchild. I think that there are no laws, or we have not seen the backing of laws, because we see this sustainability as a foreign concept. And our explanation of sustainability has always been something to which to countermand to. And the fact that used materials are brought to the shores of Ghana and they are accumulating so much waste. That concept for me should be widened. The scope is not just about the waste from used materials, but then the fact that we as Africans or as Ghanaians, from where I'm coming from, being able to use our own raw materials, using our own products to come up with products and services as fashion designers, to speak to our culture, to speak to our innovation and stuff like that. It is there that we'll be building sustainability as a model or getting reforms that could make the production of local raw materials come forth to contribute to the creative economy. If we don't do that, then we may only see sustainability as a way of maybe products that have been sent from the Western world, maybe from other places, for us to just turn the genes into other products or services. But the scope, for me, should be widened so that we know that it is not just what has been used elsewhere or dumped onto the shores, but advocating for the use of local raw materials, being able to promote them and then share it through what we wear, what we do as Africans. Thank you.
Thank you very, very, very much, Andrew. That was really insightful.
Right. So there's also another question. So Amaka wants to know, not knowing the origins of many African prints, can intellectual property rights be attainable?
I don't know, but I know that so when you say African prints, what do you mean?
Hello, good morning, ma.
I mean, good morning, Amaka.
What I mean is all these Ankara prints, dashiki prints, adire. Like I'm Nigerian,
Right. Okay, thank you very much.
so
I
adire
think one
and
thing. Okay, sorry. Please go ahead. Were you still saying something?
I'm done.
Okay. I think somewhere in 2017, I wrote a story about how what we refer to as African prints are not actually African prints. So they are Dutch wax prints that received a lot of presence or a lot of attention. So these prints were originally made for the Dutch people, but received a lot of reception in Africa. So when you're talking about the wax prints are not authentically African. So it's why I spoke about the Ashoke, if I'm mentioning it right. I spoke about the Adire because Adire is authentically African. So the source for the prints, the calico that they are made here in Africa. I mean, within the communities, of course. So the Adire, the Kente in Ghana, the Fugu, these are our indigenous prints, and we can trace their roots. We can trace the story,
like I deserve more. Like
the history.
build me a house, you have to buy me 2 cars. For what?
Thank you. So aside from the fact that the indigenous wax prints, the wax actual African prints we refer to as African prints of the Ankara, they are not authentically African. However, the indigenous prints are authentically African, and we can trace their history and we can trace their roots. So it's easier for us to be able to put policies to protect these prints. The lawyers in the house, you can also add on. Can anyone hear me? Okay, great.
I think
Amaka, is your question answered?
Partly, ma, partly.
Okay, I want to wholly answer your questions. So what do you need clarity on?
okay, like you said, then the ones that did originate from Africa, you said it could be traced back to their
Yeah,
origin. Now,
yeah.
under intellectual property law, how does that work? Because there are some certain standards and some certain requirements it takes to register like some IP protections like copyright and design patents. Do you understand my
Okay,
question?
right. That one I'll move you to the lawyers.
Okay, ma.
If I could actually speak on that later on, can I speak on that now for Amaka? So, Ghana obtained the GI status for Kente. I don't know if you heard about that, the geographical indication for Kente. And we had that law since I think 2003, if I'm right, and long time ago. And the law is a local law, right? It's a national law that enables us to apply to our court for geographical indication of any of these things we spoke about, the Ashoke or the Kente. But it took us about 22 years for us to actually get our first geographical indication. So these are like laws that maybe Nigeria or other countries have, but Ghana has a GI Act, the Geographical Indication Act, which allows us to register these things. But we don't really push these things because we have other things that we could actually register as a country. But we don't really push these things. We leave them to maybe something happens in the global realm, maybe someone tries to imitate it, and then our attention is drawn to it. So practically speaking, there's a way to actually protect it. And the GI actually basically is that it protects the community which these fabrics are coming from, or these textiles are coming from, or these crafts are coming from, right? And gives them as the only country or the only community that could actually produce it and name it. So nobody can actually make kente without coming to Bonre or making it in a particular community that has been designated as a kente making community. Exactly. So if there's a GI status on something, it goes a long way to identify the source of the production, which is going to link us back to the community. But then there's a big neglect in the fashion community, especially in Africa. So I don't know if that answers your question in any way.
Yes, it has. Thank you so much. Nigeria doesn't have a GI status, so it's new to me.
All right, you're welcome. I think we should
Thank
do
you,
something
Dennis.
about that.
Yes, I think Dennis has done justice to the question, but I mean, just to add on a little bit. So when it comes to intellectual property, I mean, you can always register your rights, right? So for countries like African countries like Ghana, Nigeria, Senegal, and the rest of us. So when we have unique prints that are unique to us. So be it from their characteristics, which is being natural or being physical. So depending on where it lies, you may register it as either an appellation of origin or as a GI. And also where you think that as a group, you have a unique brand, a unique logo, or something of the sort that is peculiar to your design or something of that nature, then you may go for maybe a collective mark under trademarks. So succinctly put, I think that's the little I'll add to that. So we'll move on to another
Hi,
question.
Jennifer. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
yes, please.
Oh, okay. So I wanted to speak to what was said previously.
Oh,
So
sure, sure.
Nigeria has a GI bill currently in the works, right? So it's not yet law, but I know that it's presently before the National Assembly for consideration. And one of the things that people have to also understand is that when you look at Africa and you look at IP rights is a very westernized law. What that means is that they look at only individual protectors or authors, right? But when you bring it down to Africa, you're looking at communities. So there's a lot of arguments that IP right is not sufficient to protect our cultural heritage, because when you talk about cultural heritage, it is owned by a group of people. It's owned by a community. But when you look at IP rights, the way that the laws are drafted, it is also very individualistic in that it focuses on one person. So again, like every speaker has said, there's a gap in the law that we need to advocate. We all need to advocate for. We solidly need a cultural property law, but I know that that isn't, you have GI law replacing that, right? But there needs to be, because even GI law itself is not as sufficient as we would want it to be. So yes, I just wanted to correct the very fact that Nigeria already has a bill, you know, discussing these things, but there's a lot of nuances when it comes to considering geographical indication, because really it belongs to a community, and like you said, it's difficult to trace, and we need a lot of documentation. And if you follow the fashion space a lot, you would see that right now there's a lot of museums that are coming up. There's a lot of documentation happening across the continent, because they are trying to see how that they can move from oral to actual written work, right? So yes, it is traceable. The only problem is that we've not done the work in documenting. And I definitely know that a lot of museums and archival organizations are coming together to sort of document African fashion history. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you very
Thank
much, Brendan.
Yes.
Right. So we'll move on to the next question. I think Esther wants to know, you mentioned that fashion enthusiasts or those in the industry need to be given a seat at the decision-making table. Can you elaborate a bit more on that, please? In your view, how should such an engagement look like, and how should the representation be like? I don't know if you got the question.
Yes. Thank you very much, Esther, for the question. One thing I always say is that you cannot legislate the fashion industry without the industry involved. So I don't think or see why people who have never owned a machine, people who have never sewn, people who have never been actively within the industry will be the ones making or designing policies for us. So what should the engagement look like? People who are actually within the industry, who are the business runners, I don't know, but again, fashion people can correct me. I don't know which country it is that, whether it's one of these Asian countries I chanced upon some time back, where whatever laws within their parliament is made, they invite the local people to come in to come and contribute to it. I don't know if anybody has an idea of which Asian country is that. So they receive perspectives from different people, like the common people, to develop laws. So if the Ghanaian parliament wants to put policies together for the fashion industry, they cannot do so without the fashion industry present, right? So it is for them to invite us to be a part of the table. If they want to do anything that affects us, they have to invite us to also contribute to it. So that's what engagement will probably look like. So organizations like the Fashion Law Africa, businesses like Christy Brown, the Pistis, even dressmakers could be invited to come in and contribute to whatever policy or the policies that they want to develop on our behalf for the industry. I don't know if that answers your question.
Esther, are you okay? Right. So I'll move on very quickly to the next question. Ronnie wants to know, are associations like Fashion Designers Association of Ghana doing anything to cover some of these gaps?
It's funny because I had to go back to Google what Fashion Designers Association of Ghana is.
That's
I,
okay.
I don't know. Like, I mean, when I say that, I'm asking, what is the Fashion Designers Association of Ghana? Who is heading this? Who is part of this? Is it an individual or a policy-backed association? Again, like, that is how the industry works. Is it just an individual who decided that, okay, I have some spare time, and this is not a disrespect to the association, but on what ground was this association even developed in the first place? Is it that someone just decided that, oh, maybe I'm just bringing these people together so we can organize some events here and there? And what is the impact of these association in the first place? So I honestly don't know what they are doing, because I don't. Maybe my other colleagues might know, but I don't know if there is anything like fashion. Well, I know so maybe in the community level, I know that there are certain community organizations that this small tailors, hairdressers association, I mean, as for them, I know they are doing some kind of, I mean, especially this masterclass that we went to, we had to bring them together. We needed to, when we needed to develop the curriculum for them, we had to invite them over to sort of understand what their target market, their target group is, or the people that they mostly engage with. But I mean, I only know to the community level, but Fashion Designers Association of Ghana, I might have to go back and do a lot of research about it. I honestly don't know. I've not heard of anything substantial from that association. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Harriet. Bernice, please, I see that your hand is up. Would you want to ask any question? Okay, so we'll move on to the next question. Samuela says, this was such a good talk, Akuvi. However, since there are no exact legal framework governing fashion law, how can one raise awareness to strengthen copyright of elements used in fashion? And do you think fashion schools should create an educational course in their syllabus to inform fashion students about such issues and how to go about works they do? For even though the Copyright Act, Act 690, governs or protects artistic work, as you stated earlier, it does not necessarily extend to fashion or regulate in the Ghana's fashion industry. And this is a grave issue, especially if fashion is evolving and most people today are becoming interested.
I mean, I was
don't know if-
laughing, smiling. I was smiling because my response to this question is call them out. For me, I always say that if persuasion fails, force should be applied. The fashion industry, again, because there are no policies governing the entire industry. It's not structured, maybe for lack of a better word, I'll use structured. It's not properly structured. People do anything they like within the industry. I find that a lot, because I mean, you cannot stand up, an individual cannot stand up without going through the right process to form a law school. Or, I mean, you need some sort of accreditation from a higher authority to be able to even establish a fashion school. Why can't the same thing be applied to the fashion industry? Now you wake up and you see a lot of sew in 6 months. It irks me a lot. It irks me to the bone. Like, so in 6 months, to learn how to sew corsets, learn how to. The industry is not about corset. It's not only about snatched waist. It's not about cleavage. It's a whole lot of business. Like, people do not. I think a lot of people are paying attention to the wrong things, and it is evident in. Maybe let me even use this as an example. During the issue between Anakiado and the what's it called, the whole copyright issue, IP issue, did you see people in the comments defending it? People do not even know or understand what IP issues are. People don't know what intellectual property is. Yeah, because everyone just stands up, finds a design on Pinterest, take to their local tailors to sew for them, and I mean, that's the end of the conversation. So to people, it's just okay. She saw this design, sent it to somebody, they made it and all that. People don't even understand, and people will defend their favorites, no matter how or what you tell them, they will always defend their favorite. So that is where fashion schools need to come in. We are more focused on, it only took researching some years back for me to even understand that there are so many aspects within the industry and design is just a tiny aspect of it, right? But this knowledge is not exposed within the fashion industry. We need to look at the fashion curriculum. Who is even designing the curriculum in the first place? It was very sad that I met with some interns who didn't even know what the sustainable development goals were. And this is an integral topic within the industry, especially if you are talking about sustainability. So it is why the engagement, the stakeholder engagement with the fashion actors are very, very important, because they are the ones who are able to tell us what we need to put in there. Like an educational minister from probably, or education person who has never ever experienced the industry shouldn't be the one developing the curriculum for us, right? So it's like we are paying attention to to different things, to the design, and neglecting the business aspect of it. So yes, there is a gap that needs to be filled. That is why the policy is important, to regulate all these things, ensuring that we need an assessee of the fashion industry. We need a school that has all these things. So yeah, I hope your question is answered.
Yes, please. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you very much, Harriet, for such an insightful presentation. And thank you also for taking time to answer the numerous questions thrown your way. We would like to let you all know that we have put in the chat how to stay connected to us on our various social media platforms. So kindly have a look and follow us on the various social media platforms so that you can always be alerted anytime we have such insightful webinars. Without wasting much time, I'll call on Dennis Akwabwa, our country representative, to give us his addresses. Dennis, if you are ready.
Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate this platform. Good morning, everyone, once again. And it's very nice to have you all here. Initially, I'm supposed to give a keynote address, and after I've heard the conversations going on, it's almost as if we all have one symptom, right? There's one problem, and that's basically what my keynote address would have been on. That's today we are just expressing the symptom of policy gap. Like there's a problem, there's a neglect in the industry that we are all faced with, and we cannot move on to any other conversation unless we address these policy gaps, because it's a whole industry that needs to be harnessed, right? And we just don't think of it as just the creative aspect. We have to look at it, as Akubi said, we have to look at it whole in the whole. Like we have to look at it from the best eye view and see it as an industry. So I guess everybody has captured my keynote address for me. So I'll just go ahead and move into my address for today. I think Akubi also did a great job with the fashion law in Ghana, because I think you are a lawyer already, because you actually explain things succinctly and very clearly, which I really appreciate, because that was exactly what I was going to do today too. But we can also go through it again. So now my framing today, Akubi made us understand that there are gaps in the industry, right? And my framing today will look at the full product cycle of a fashion item. And whilst we are looking at the full product cycle of a fashion item, we understand where the laws exist or do not exist, and what we have to do or what we must build, right? So I'm looking at it from the raw material stage to the design stage, next to the manufacturing stage, then trade and exports, and retail and e-commerce, and the end of life of the product, which Akubi killed it for me. Thank you again. So yes, let's get into it. I think Akubi defined fashion law for us, but it's essentially all the laws that fashion law is essentially all the laws that has to do with the fashion industry, right? And most industries have their dedicated laws. Like you go to the medical field and they have like medical acts and all that. Go to construction, go to most fields have their dedicated law, but it looks as if fashion doesn't have a dedicated law, especially in Ghana, right? What happens is that you realize the general laws are the same laws that apply to fashion, right? So you look at our intellectual property framework and you realize that it doesn't specifically say fashion or anything, but we have an intellectual property framework. So all these legal principles, statuses and regulations that govern the industry make up the fashion law. So we have our normal IP that everybody knows. Um, and why is this conversation important in Ghana? Because Ghana's fashion industry is actually doing well, but not doing well. Doing well in the sense that as of last year, fashion contributed about 2.5 or $2.4 billion to the economy, like GDP, which I mean, economic sense, they can explain it in a negative and a positive way, but it shows you an activity in the industry. And this is an industry that provides over, I think, 200,000 or 100,000 jobs. And these are like the documented ones. So imagine the informal sector. And we have the biggest second-hand market in Ghana, which we receive about 15 million fabrics or garments a week. And these garments, I'm sure most of them, about 40 to 45% turn waste during just that week that it comes. So we have a lot of activity going on in Ghana. Ghana is now seen as the one of the first African countries to have a geographic indication. So there's activity in the industry, right? So why do we need fashion law then? I mean, it looks like everybody's doing their own thing. Why do we need fashion law? It's because laws are the ones, are the instruments to build societies, right? When there are laws, we are able to make the right decisions for everybody, for the good of the community or the country that we live in. But if you look at the full life cycle of a fashion product, let's say especially in Ghana, you realize that in design and IP, there are some laws that exist. Kobe spoke about the copyright, the trademark, the industrial designs, but the gap there is not about the laws essentially, but it's the knowledge gap, right? The gap there is not about the laws, but it's a knowledge gap. If you look at the manufacturing industry, like the manufacturing chain too, you realize that there are no standardization, and we have the Ghana Standard Authorities here, who is that is responsible for standardization of, how do you call it, the things that are produced in the country, but we do not have that here. We do not do any form of standardization when it comes to our fashion items. Even in the trade and exports chain, so you realize that there's no dedicated trade laws, or there's the general custom laws, there's a general how do you call it, um export laws, but we don't have any export strategy for fashion. And one of the things I'm also very keen about is the retail and the e-commerce bit, because now it looks like fashion is moving into a different, well, it has moved, that we are almost always online, right? Everybody's trying to put something online. So, but we do not have any law that is regulating that is specifically for fashion. And even the law that speaks about e-commerce and retail the Transactions Act doesn't really, it's very scanty for us. So when you look at the value chain, like there's a problem, because now the laws are not there to support the activities that are happening, right? Even the end of life activity of an outfit or a a fashion item doesn't really have any, there's no responsibility on anybody to make sure that we are disposing of these clothes very well. So this is essentially why we need to we talk about this, we have this discussion. So why are we essentially here, the Fashion Law Africa Institute Africa? Why are we here? We are building something. We have 4 core mandates to be here. That's why we're here. Our mandates are essentially to, one, that is educate the public, because we realize that there's an education gap, right, in the community that we are in the sector that we are in. So We are here to educate with regular programs and events. We partner with people and educate them on issues that are presented to us or that we feel like they need to know. We also do IP help and IP registration support. We also do policy advocacy and community building. That's essentially why the Fashion Law Institute Africa is in Ghana now, and that's what we do. We have a couple of initiatives that we take on through, and these are also geared towards the four core mandates. So we essentially do help the industry that we are in to build them. So um, I think I've been alerted that my time is up. So I would actually say thank you to you guys for making time for this discussion. But it's an important discussion that we are having here, that we need these laws in place so that we could actually move forward as a developing country, that one day we become a developed country. I need to hand it over to Stacy, I think, for Stacy to give us some juice she has for us. Stacy or Jennifer, right? Jennifer
Yeah.
will get back to us.
Yes. Thank you very much, Dennis. So very quickly before Stacy comes, I'd like to give a bit of an intro on her bio. So Stacy Tahiru is a Ghanaian fashion designer, entrepreneur, and lawyer. She's the founder and creative director of Stay, a women's wear brand celebrated for its elegant, intentional, and confidently feminine designs created for the modern woman. Through Stay, Stacy creates timeless pieces that embody quality, refinement, and effortless sophistication while championing individuality and confidence through style. Alongside leading her Stay, Stacy practices corporate law, gracefully navigating both the creative and professional worlds with a deep passion for entrepreneurship, women's empowerment, and purposeful brand building. Her work reflects a commitment to shaping meaningful African brands, inspiring authenticity and encouraging women to move through every season of life with confidence, grace, and intention. Without much ado, I'll invite Stacey to take the floor. Stacey, you're most welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for the opportunity. Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
please.
Okay. So my name is Stacey Tahiru. Jennifer has said everything you need to know about me, so I'll just jump right into it. I'm a lawyer and I'm also the creative director of Stay. So Stay, as Jennifer said, is a women's wear brand. We create elegant pieces for women. We want women to feel their most confident selves whenever they step into a room. So that's what Stay is about. But interestingly, Stay wasn't something I set out to build. It actually started from a very personal experience. As a young woman with a fuller body, I spent a lot of time playing it safe with fashion. And for me, it meant wearing a lot of black outfits to feel more comfortable. And the black outfits gave me a sense of confidence. But over time, I realized I was limiting myself and in some ways hiding behind what I felt was safe. So I started experimenting with colors, different silhouettes, and styles, and that allowed me to express myself more freely. And funny enough, the more I express myself, the more I got compliments about what I was wearing. Oh, who made your dress for you? Oh, I want the same thing. Then I realized that this is actually something I can turn into a business. And that's how I started Stay. Looking back, I often say Stay is the most beautiful accident that happened to me. It grew from a very personal journey of self confidence into a brand that now helps women embrace their own confidence and individuality. So I'm excited to be here today as both a lawyer and a fashion entrepreneur to share some of the lessons I've learned navigating the intersection of fashion, business, and the law. Originally, I thought this was going to be a panel discussion, so I was expecting like a back and forth with different people on the panel, but it looks like I'm the only one that's going to be talking. So please indulge me as I just speak. I might speak too much or speak too little, but please, I hope you learn a little bit from this session. Okay, so I'll jump right into it. So the first thing I would address are the most important legal steps a fashion entrepreneur in Ghana should take when they are starting a brand, and what happens when you do not take these steps? I would first say that fashion is creative. And a lot of people are more interested in the creative side, and they forget that once you start selling, fashion is not just it's not just about the creative side, but it's a business, and every business needs a legal foundation. A lot of fashion entrepreneurs, they start very naturally. Oh, you make a few pieces, people like them, friends start ordering, you open an Instagram page, and suddenly you have a brand. You think that's it, but no, that is beautiful, yes. But the danger is that the business can grow faster than the structure behind it. So the first legal step is business registration. You have to register your business properly so it has a legal identity. This helps with like opening business accounts, signing contracts, applying for opportunities, dealing with some suppliers, and generally being taken seriously, because are you really a business owner if your business has not been registered? When you don't register early, everything everything remains tied to you personally, and that can become very messy as a brand grows. I would also say you have to protect your brand name. I'll delve into this a little deeper later, but let me just quickly brush on it. Like, you have to protect your brand name. In fashion, your name is not just a name, it becomes your reputation. Like when you hear Pestis, when you hear Christy Brown, they're like, oh, you know what they are talking about. Another person, another individual cannot go and start a brand and name it Pestis or name it Christy Brown. It's, or even when they do, it will be associated with the main Pestis. Because when you think of Pestis, you think of Sumaya. So that is what customers remember. That's the tag. What they search for. So from the beginning, founders should think about trademark protection. Many people assume that having an Instagram handle, oh, am I speaking too fast? Or we're still on course? Please let me. Hello, please let me know if you can hear me.
You're good. You're
You're
good.
fine.
You're
You're
good.
fine.
We are good,
You're good.
yes.
You're doing great.
Hi, Stacy.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes. Yes, we
Okay.
can.
Okay. So you have to protect your name because your name means it all. And you may later find someone else using something similar or may struggle to stop people from benefiting from the reputation you have built because you do not register your name. We'll talk about it later on, but this is just a little summary on some of the key steps you should take when you're starting a fashion brand. I think the third thing is contracts. We all know how critical contracts are. I always say contracts are not there because you don't trust people. No, contracts are there because everyone needs clarity. It's as simple as that. Fashion involves so many relationships: tailors, seamstresses, photographers, models, influencers, stylists, fashion suppliers, manufacturers, you name it, retailers, even sometimes investors. So everything is based on if everything is based on verbal agreements or WhatsApp conversations, misunderstandings can happen very quickly. For example, I started with Francophone tailors, and and to them they thought they had one agreement and I thought I had another agreement, but I had to put it down in writing. Even though they couldn't read English, I had to get an interpreter that would interpret what you are speaking about. I had to make sure that they understood the terms of the contract you're about to sign before they sign, because if I hadn't done that, their assumption of what was going to happen during their work with stay and what I thought was going to happen were two different things. So we had to meet in the middle and sign contracts to that effect before we could continue work. Even sometimes you have a photo shoot and you wonder, so who owns the photos after a shoot? Can the brand use them for ads? Was the influencer collaboration gifted or was it paid? When exactly should the tailor deliver the items? So what happens when the quality of the item is not right? Or what happens when your supplier delays? These are things that we often overlook and it becomes a problem in the end. So I think contracts are essential in every stage of your business, from the least thing to the thing you think is the most important. I think a contract, it can be just have an understanding and just reach an agreement. And it's not always verbal. You must write it down, and everybody knows, okay, we are on the same page and we are moving from there. So I think another thing we should consider is understanding the employment and worker relationships. A lot of fashion brands work with these artisans casually. Like we work with tailors seamstress casually, but as the business grows, you need to know whether people are employees, are they independent contractors, are they interns, are they service providers. That affects payment, it affects duties, it affects confidentiality, termination, responsibilities. And when it's unclear, it can lead to disputes, especially around money, designs, expectations. It all boils down to the contracts, like what is going on here, what does A think is going on, or what does B think is going on. Once you meet in the middle and you understand each other, then you know that you can work peacefully in an ecosystem. I think another important step is tax and basic compliance. Many creators don't like this part, but it matters. You must keep proper records. You must issue receipts or invoices. You must understand your tax obligations and separate personal money from business money. I think like that's one of the hardest things to do here. Like you always want to dip into the business money because you think it's yours, but it's not really yours. It's the business. The business is a separate entity from you. So it's the money for the business, it's not the money for Stacy. If you don't, you may not even know whether the brand is truly profiting because the money is just all mixed up. And that is something that will affect you later. Because if someone wants to invest in your business, they want to see your books, they want to see your records, they want to see what is going on. It's not what you're saying, but what is actually going on, your inventory, everything. So you need to have your books as accurate as can be. If you can't do it, you can always get an accountant to work on it for you. You have friends, they are accountants, they're still in school, but they know how to get it right for you. And it's very important, especially for all these loans they give to fashion entrepreneurs that are starting startups. Like without your books, they will not give you anything. And that's free money can get to benefit to grow your business and the like. Yes. I also think, oh, I hope I'm not speaking too fast.
I believe you are right on
No,
course.
you're not.
Yes, please.
No, no.
Uh, I also think fashion founders should take social media and content rights very seriously. I know fashion brands live online now. People, but using someone's photo, music, artwork, Pinterest image, campaign without their permission can create legal problems. Because I experienced something personally. So my auntie owns a fabric shop, and she used this famous actress for her billboards. She sells fabrics. She used this famous actress for her billboard. She's been using it for more than 8 years. No, wait, maybe more than 5 years. And she had no problems. All of a sudden, she got a letter stating that she's being sued because she was using the actress's um pictures on a billboard without the actress' permission. They were right, and eventually they decided to settle out of court. But they got a lot of money from it because there was no contract between her and the actress stating that okay, you can use my pictures on your page. Like when I want to use my client's picture on my social media, I first ask my clients for permission because I cannot just take her image. Yes, it's her outfit, but she bought it. So she has rights to the outfit now because she's paid for it. So I cannot just pick her picture and post it on my social media because she's wearing my outfit. No, I need her permission first. And all these are all little issues we tend to overlook, but they are actually very critical in the fashion business. When founders don't take these steps, the consequences may not show immediately. You might think that, oh, after all, yeah, man, you're getting away with it. I mean, I've not registered my business, who knows? I mean, I've not registered Stay as a name of the brand, who knows? But even though we are underestimating it, later on problems come up. People copy your brand name, you can't do anything about it. You're now going to court following them around when you could have prevented this from the very beginning. A collaboration claims ownership of the content. A tailor is reproducing your designs for someone else. A customer disputes a custom order. A partner walks away with no clear agreement, or the business cannot scale because nothing is properly documented. And I think even though fashion starts with creativity, we shouldn't just build on excitement. We must build on structure. Legal foundations are there not to slow down fashion entrepreneurship. They are there to protect the creativity, the relationships, and the business you are trying to grow. It's as simple as that. So we must take note of these steps I've stated. Okay, so the next thing I'll be speaking on is how trademark works as a fashion for a fashion brand in Ghana and what it actually protects and why most founders skip it. Trademarking is one of those things many founders they hear about, but they don't always fully understand what it means in practical terms. In Ghana, trademark registration is done at the Registrar General's departments. The process generally it starts with a search to see whether the name or the logo is already registered or pending. And when you file the application, it is examined, published for possible opposition, and if there's no successful objection, the mark is registered. For a fashion brand, the trademark protects things like the brand name, the logo, the slogan, the label name, or any distinctive sign that the customers use to identify your business. So, for example, stay. The value is not only in the clothes, no. Over time, stay begins to carry reputation. Stay begins to carry trust, quality, emotional connections from all the storytelling we do as a brand. So that's what trademark law helps to protect. It's not protecting my designs, no. It's protecting my stay. It's protecting stay's logo. It's protecting like uh label name, any distinctive sign that's associated with stay. And what it does not automatically protect is our silhouette, it doesn't protect our style. That's where people often get confused. The trademark protects the identity of the brand, not necessarily the entire fashion design, as I said earlier. So if someone copies my brand name or uses a confusingly similar logo, that is more clearly a trademark issue. So if someone copies the general look of a dress, it may fall into a more complicated area, maybe corporate, copyright, industrial designs, passing off, unfair competition, depending on the facts. So I'll explain this way. Your trademark protects the name people trust. It does not automatically protect every creative idea behind the clothes. Another point is classification. When you apply, you register the trademark in relation to a particular goods or services. Ghana uses the NICE classification system. So for fashion, you would usually be looking at the class for clothing, but depending on the business, you may also think about accessories, retail services, cosmetics, or any other future extensions. Getting the class right matters because trademark protection is tied to the goods and the services you register for. Once registered, a trademark in Ghana is generally valid for 10 years and can be renewed for further 10-year periods. That means that it's not just a one-time formality. It becomes a long-term business asset. Now, why do most founders skip it? I honestly think that there are a few reasons. Number one, people just do not know. In fashion, especially in Ghana, a lot of people start very organic. As I said earlier, you start by making clothes for your friends, then people start ordering, then you start your Instagram page. Before you know it, you have a brand. But because it starts so informally, the legal side is often not treated as urgent. So once it's not treated as urgent, it becomes a problem in the near future. Another reason I think most people skip it is the cost involved. At a very early stage, you're thinking about your fabrics, you're thinking about production, you're thinking about photo shoots, how expensive they are. Even models are charging like 5K for 4 hours and things. So that's where your mind is. You're thinking about your packaging, your delivery, and your marketing. So the trademarking, it feels like something that you can postpone and postpone, but by the time you realize it's a detriment to your business. So I don't think it's something that we should skip. I think it's one of the very, very first things you should do as a brand. Another reason I think people skip trademark is because they assume that once you have registered your business name, you bought the domain, you've opened the Instagram handle, you've opened the Instagram page, they own the brand completely. But business registration and trademark protection are not the same thing. Registering the business may allow you to operate under that name, but trademark gives you a stronger protection over the brand in the marketplace. And finally, I'll say some founders don't see their brand as valuable. They still think, oh, I'm a small brand. Oh, I'll do it later. Oh, that's time. But the problem is that later sometimes, when the brand has already gained visibility, by then someone else may have started using a similar name, or worse, they may have registered something close to it. So my advice would be, don't wait till your brand becomes popular before you protect it. Protect it because you believe that it has the potential to become valuable. A simple way I'll say it is trademarking your fashion brand is really about protecting the identity and reputation you're building. The clothes may bring in people. The brand name is what they remember, recommend, and come back to. But from day one, founders should treat their brand name as an asset, not just a social media handle, but as an asset. Thank you. So the next one I'll speak on is some of the legal risk Ghanaian entrepreneurs take unknowingly. Oh, just a minute, please. Hello, can you hear me? So, hello.
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can
can
hear
hear
you.
you.
Oh, sorry, my network seems to be messing up. Just a second, please. Okay, so the next thing I'll be touching on are the most common legal risk Ghanaian fashion entrepreneurs they take unknowingly in contracts, collaboration, social media, and design. I think in Ghana, what matters, a very common, as I said earlier, the very common legal risk people take are improper contracts. So someone who assumed they are getting, so some of these legal risks, they don't even come from bad intentions, they come from assumptions. Someone is assuming they will be paid. Someone is assuming they own their photos. They assume they can take content however they want. They assume design is free to recreate. That's where the problem starts. A lot of fashion collaborations happen through DMs. They happen through DMs and WhatsApp messages. Everyone is excited, everyone is friendly, and nobody thinks about anything will go wrong. But once money, timelines, and ownership becomes involved, misunderstandings happen very quickly. Very, very quickly. So social media is another area people take risk unknowingly. Sometimes people use images they find online, as I said, campaign photos, content from other creators without permission. All of these are legal risks that we are taking, but we are taking it unknowingly because we think that, oh, it's just one of those things. But fashion is inspired by many things, and inspiration is normal. But there's a thin line between being inspired and reproducing someone's work too closely. The biggest lesson is that clarity saves relationships. Most legal disputes have been avoided if expectations are simply written down from the very beginning. So I think yes, that is one of the common legal risks Ghanaian entrepreneurs face. Misunderstandings, not writing down what the contracts are supposed to entail. And there should be clarity from the very beginning, basically. So yes, that's what I would say. Um so the next one we'll
Jennifer,
speak about. Okay, so the next thing I will speak about is how intellectual property applies to fashion design specifically. And and what are the current limits with this? So um okay, so I think my time is fast spent. So let's just tackle I think the most beautiful thing I want to talk about is speaking from my own experience as a founder, what I wish I had known about law when I started Stay. If I'm being completely honest, I wish I understood how interconnected law and fashion really are. When I started Stay, I was so focused on creating beautiful clothes. Like, hey, I'm driven by passion. And I was also a student. I was not yet a lawyer. So I was so enthused. Oh my God, I'm a fashion designer, I'm a lawyer. I just want to build a brand people will love. My attention was on the creative side. But what I did not fully appreciate at the time was how often legal issues show up in everyday business decisions. Every collaboration has legal implications. Every photo shoot has legal implications. Every employee or tailor relationship has legal implication. Every logo, brand name, website, customer transaction has legal implications. I also wish I had appreciated the importance of documentation. much earlier. Not because people are dishonest, but because memories are different. What one person remembers agreeing to may not be the same as what I remembered being agreeing to. So today, as both a founder and a lawyer, I don't see legal structures as something restrictive. I see them as something that gives you confidence to grow. Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't about creating beautiful fashion. No, the goal is to build a business that can survive, that can scale, and still be standing years from now. So yes, that's the end of it. In the end, fashion starts with creativity, yes, but sustainable fashion businesses are built on creativity, structure, and protection. The sooner founders understand this, the stronger their brands will be. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. That is the end of it. So I
Thank
hand
you
it.
very much.
You're welcome. I hand over to Dennis to take over. Unfortunately, I have to run, but Dennis will answer all your questions because he's my senior at the bar. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Stacy. Right. So I will hand over to Dennis at the moment. And if there are any questions, kindly feel free to put them in the chat or raise a hand. In the meantime, Dennis will be giving the closing remarks as we wait for the questions.
Okay. Please, if you have questions, you could put in the chat box. So thank you, Stacy, for such an insightful talk. You actually really did a great job with your session. We loved it. I personally enjoyed it. This has been a really great discussion. I think what we essentially get out of all this is that there's a problem and we want to actually do better. The whole system needs to be fixed, and this is a step that we are taking. I mean, we are all adding our little mighty voices to this course, and I'm really grateful that we all got to hear how the problem is being seen by different people, but it looks like we come back to the same issues, right? So thank you so much for that. Thank you to our speakers, Stacy and Akuvi, for making time to speak with us today, for bringing your knowledge, your experience, and your candor to this conversation. I really appreciate that. Thank you to the Fashion Law Institute Africa for this platform, for us to be able to do this and the work you're doing on the continent. This is the first thing we are doing, first event we are doing in Ghana, and we hope that there will be more sessions with all of us. And by the time we are done, we have moved forward. I mean, and advanced in our policies. So thank you everyone for being part of this, and thank you for this beginning, part of this beginning. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you very much, Dennis. I think Chloe has a question. Chloe, you may unmute.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Dennis, and also Stacy and Akavi for a really lovely conversation. I think we've spoken a lot and gone through many of the different topics or challenges that in the Ghanaian landscape we may be facing. But I wanted to really get clear on what the takeaway is from you guys, from your side, and what the action plan is after this call, because this is obviously the first time, and there's been a depthful conversation, and people have shared their voices, and people have yes, Akuvi, I used to work for the O Foundation. Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
This
Thank you.
this has been a really insightful conversation to hear from you guys, but I really want to know what are the key takeaways you want the group to come away with, as well as on your side, as the organizers of this, conversation, what the next step is, and the action plan is. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Chloe. So I will take the first part, which has to do with the key takeaways. So I would personally say that for me, I think at the end of the day, all that the speakers are trying to highlight is the fact that you do not necessarily have to look at fashion in a vacuum. So fashion goes broader than just a clothing or accessory. It's a whole ecosystem that integrates so many laws and integrates so many individuals and workers. And so, as such, we need to treat fashion as the business that it is. And we can only make it the business it ought to be by looking at it from the legal perspective as well. So, what are the legal risks associated with them? What are the opportunities in them? How best can you leverage some of the laws that are available? And then enforcement wise, what can we do as stakeholders? How can we as entrepreneurs also get the attention and be at the fore of discussions? And then how best can these stakeholders be trained with technical expertise so that they better appreciate how best to help the ecosystem as a whole? With the second leg on what we stand to achieve, I will hand it over to Dennis, who is the main country rep, to touch on that. Thank you.
Okay, so for me, there's been a very interesting. This is an interesting conversation, and one of the key takeaways. It has been a conversation we've been having, right? But today, one of the key takeaways was that Ghana has a sustainability crisis, right? And the sustainability crisis is not just tantamount, but it's also about us harnessing the our normal disposition, which is to be sustainable. How much we can actually get from that. That I feel like it was highlighted, and also another key takeaway is that maybe the IPs that we are trying to use to protect our intellect, our designs and all that, maybe that is not what we are supposed to use. Maybe we should create our own. So I think Olu will say someone in the sorry if I pronounced the name wrongly, but someone in the chat actually highlighted that it's maybe wise or maybe prudent for us to look in that direction where we create our own kind of like IP structure, right? So I think these conversations are coming up, and it's important that we talk about it and create awareness. So that is this is essentially what we were supposed to do today, is that create an awareness that there is a problem, there's something that we needs to be done in this industry, and we want to add our voice to it today and bring awareness on these topics. And the action plans that I believe that we could focus on is to partner more with industry players. As much as we are giving these educational how do you call it, sessions and events, we could also we are looking at partnering more with industry players and working together to close the education gap. And also we are also looking to help any how do you call it, brand like stay if they need any assistance with anything. Those are things that we actually want to do. So I mean, we have an event coming up with one of the institutes in Ghana, like complex department, which is a cohort to give training to the creatives, right? So these are things that we envisage doing, and these are things that actionable things that we envisage doing. But today has been the highlight for me is that we have a sustainability problem aside the actual policy gaps that we have, and that we may actually we should start thinking about a new way of protecting our own fashion, right? Because maybe the Western ones are not working, or it takes too much time, or it's too convoluted for us. So that is my thinking. I don't know if anybody has anything to say. Akubi.
Yes. Very quickly before Akubi, I think Bernice is our executive director, by the way. I think her hand is up, and so I'll invite Bernice to say a thing or two.
Yes, hello, Jennifer. Can you hear me?
Please, I can.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Dennis. I wanted to highlight, because from everything that we've said, I think that it's important for stakeholders in the fashion industry in Ghana to see that they have a responsibility to do. So one of the things that I realized is that the fashion industry, a lot of people, a lot of designers, a lot of people who play in this space do not exactly think that they are responsible for the industry. A lot of people are waiting to be called by the government. A lot of people are waiting for people to reach out to them to say, "Oh, this is what we're working on, and you can work on this together." But I'll tell you for a fact that I don't think that the government would reach out if we don't decide that this is what we want to do for ourselves. There are various types of regulation for the fashion industry. There are various types of regulation that exist, right? There is self-regulation, there's co-regulation. Many times, right, the stakeholders in the industry, and when I say stakeholders, a lot of people tend to think that it is organizations and it is, a lot of people that we have, but really it is the people who are affected by the happenings in that industry. We have to come together to form a fashion council. As lawyers, right, as the Fashion Law Institute Africa, there's only so much that we can do on our end. We can talk about the law, but we need people on the fashion industry side to come together so that we can have conversations, right? And not just have conversation. We can put pen to paper to say this is the policy work that we are recommending. This is a comprehensive policy work for the Ghanaian fashion industry, and then we propose this thing. So it is our collective duty. And we have taken a bold step to establish Fashion Law Institute in Ghana, being led by Dennis. And we think that that's the initiative that we're going to pioneer very soon. But the truth is, we have to work with everyone. Everybody has a responsibility. I know that in the fashion industry, because we are very fragmented and we can sort of be very classist, we think that we are waiting for other people to make the move. I mean, how dare us have the audacity to say that we would form Ghana Fashion Council. It happened also in Nigeria because that's where I'm also based, right? We started the Nigerian Fashion Council. A lot of industry stakeholders came together to say we have to come together to push the industry forward and have our voice at the table, because these conversations about policy in the fashion industry, they are happening regardless of whether or not you are partaking in it. They are having these conversations, they are moving on with the laws. But if we decide to say that we have a regulating body that represents the interest of everybody who is playing in the fashion industry, I'm sure they will take us seriously. So maybe we should leave, with the charge that we need to form a fashion council that represents the interest of Ghana directly, and then also represents the interest in global conversations for the fashion industry. So I hope that we'll be able to spearhead that, working alongside a lot of people. We've started a lot of work in Ghana. We started collaborating with fashion schools, to help bridge the awareness gap. We're hosting this webinar, and we hope that, if you're a stakeholder in the chat, you reach out to us. We are open to collaboration. We're open to working together. We also host legal clinic where we have volunteer lawyers helping brands. I know that cost is a big deal, and we have lawyers who are willing to actually work with these brands to make this process easy. So you can reach out to us. We are very much available to take this conversation forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Bernice. So I have been your host and anchor for today's inaugural event. My name is Jennifer Esispio Esquire, and thank you very much for joining us. I am a deputy country rep for Fashion Law Institute Africa, and today I have been blessed with the presence of our executive director, Bernice, and also the main country representatives presence, Dennis Akwabua, as well as our well-researched and highly esteemed speakers in the persons of Akuvi and Stacy. Thank you once again for joining us. We hope to see you again and to discuss further on what next to do. All right, it's a bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Bye.